On a cold winter's night several years ago, Tyler Beddoes might not have known it, but he was about to experience a miracle. On this fateful day, he and fellow police officers responded to an overturned car in the Spanish Fork River, which led to the unlikely rescue of 18-month-old Lily Grosbeck. Lily and her mother had been driving home in the snow until suddenly their car crashed headlong into the icy Spanish Fork River. When interviewed about the incident, Tyler said, "That rescue's always there, always in my heart." He said he remembers when the call came in for an overturned car in the river, and the level of urgency spiked when they realized there was someone still trapped inside the car. "We heard an adult female's voice that said, 'Help me.' It was clear as day. It was almost like a calming voice, but urgent. In my mind, in my heart at that time, I thought, I don't know what's calling out to us. There's nobody else around. It wasn't the baby. It couldn't be the baby. She was just 18 months, said Beddoes. Lily was found in the back seat, unscathed and unharmed. She had been upside down and barely above the rushing cold water for about 16 hours. Her mother had died on impact, yet the police heard an adult female voice. The question is, where did this voice come from? This incident is one of many supernatural occurrences that occur in our world called miracles. I'm sure you can remember instances when you've experienced a miracle. Maybe you were in need of money, and right at that moment someone decided to send you some, maybe the exact amount. Or you were crossing the road and almost got hit by a coming vehicle. Somehow, however, you escaped, and you're here watching this. Miracles are all around us. However, skeptics say that miracles do not happen because God may not exist, or if God exists, he may not intervene in people's lives. But we believers know that miracles happen constantly because God is at work in our world. Miracles are particularly significant events. Aside from being awe-provoking, jaw-dropping, and mind-boggling, miracles bear deeper meanings. In this video, we will examine what miracles are, 4 types of miracles, and the hidden messages in these miracles. A miracle is an extraordinary event manifesting divine intervention in human affairs. The key idea is that miracles represent a breach or suspension of the typical patterns and laws that govern the natural universe. They involve a supernatural force or agency directly acting upon and altering the normal course of events in the material world. This sets miracles apart from ordinary natural occurrences and imbues them with a sense of the divine or the miraculous. A miracle may also be any unexplainable event that piques your curiosity and inspires your awe. The Bible contains documentation of several miracles performed at different periods in history through prophets, Jesus, and the apostles. Miracles in the Bible can be classified into 4 primary types. The Bible says that the number of miracles performed by Jesus would fill the libraries of the world if they were to be recorded, so we can't cover all of them in this video. But pay attention as we look at instances of miracles in the following 4 types of miracles. 1. Miracles over nature. A miracle over nature is a miracle performed over natural things. It is an event that defies natural laws. Such miracles are acts of God that surpass human understanding and demonstrate his power over the natural world. One notable example of a miracle over nature is when Jesus calms the storm, as described in the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Mark 4:35-41 says, "That day when evening came, he said to his disciples, 'Let us go over to the other side.' Leaving the crowd behind, they took him along just as he was, in the boat. There were also other boats with him. A furious squall came up and the waves broke over the boat so that it was nearly swamped. Jesus was in the stern, sleeping on a cushion. The disciples woke him and said to him, 'Teacher, don't you care if we drown?' He got up, rebuked the wind, and said to the waves, 'Quiet, be still.' Then the wind died down, and it was completely calm. He said to his disciples, "Why are you so afraid? Do you still have no faith?" They were terrified and asked each other, "Who is this? Even the wind and the waves obey him." In this instance, Jesus demonstrates his divine authority by commanding the wind and the sea to be still, an act that defies natural phenomena and reinforces the faith of his disciples. Another instance is when Jesus turned water into unfermented wine in John chapter 2 at a wedding in Cana of Galilee. That was a miracle over nature because water and wine are natural elements. All the elements of nature are subject to Jesus because he created them all, Colossians 1:16. Probably the most popular miracle of nature in the ministry of Jesus is when he and Peter both walked on water in Matthew 14:22-33. What is the significance of this type of miracle? Miracles over nature tell us several things. Let's look at 4 of them. 1. Affirmation of divine authority. Miracles over nature are often seen as a direct manifestation of divine power, emphasizing the omnipotence and sovereignty of God. They show that God is not bound by the natural laws that govern the physical world. 2. Validation of prophets and messengers. Such miracles serve to authenticate the claims of prophets and messengers. In the Bible, miracles performed by Jesus and other prophets validate their divine mission and message, reinforcing their authority and credibility. 3. Inspiring awe and reverence. Witnessing a miracle over nature can inspire awe and reverence among believers. It reinforces their faith and trust in God's power and goodness, especially in times of doubt or crisis. 4. Revealing God's character. Miracles over nature reveal aspects of God's character, such as his compassion, care, and responsiveness to human needs. They show that God is actively involved in the world and attentive to the plight of his creation. Jesus is still performing miracles of nature all over the earth. People do not see them when they do not believe in them. God desires for you to experience miracles over nature. The next type of miracle is miracles of supply. A miracle of supply refers to a supernatural provision of resources or needs, often in situations where there is a lack or insufficiency. These miracles demonstrate God's ability to provide abundantly and meet the needs of his people in extraordinary ways. One of the most famous instances of a miracle of supply in the Bible is the feeding of the 5,000, as described in John 6:1-14. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is, the Sea of Tiberias, and a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up, "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. When they had all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. After the people saw the sign Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." Miracles of supply bear their own significance. They demonstrate God as provider. Miracles of supply highlight God's role as the ultimate provider. They show that God is aware of the needs of his people and is both willing and able to meet those needs, often in ways that far exceed human expectations. Also, these miracles demonstrate that God can bring abundance from scarcity. They remind believers that no situation is too dire for God's intervention, and his resources are limitless. Miracles of supply encourage believers to trust in God's provision, especially during times of need or uncertainty. They serve as powerful testimonies that God can and will provide, bolstering faith and hope. These miracles teach the importance of relying on God rather than solely on human resources or efforts. They illustrate that God's provision often comes when we acknowledge our dependence on him. Another notable example is the story of Elijah and the widow at Zarephath in 1 Kings 17:8-16. During a severe drought, God miraculously provided oil and flour for the widow and her son, as well as for Elijah, ensuring they did not run out of food. This story emphasizes God's care for the marginalized and his ability to sustain life even in the most desperate circumstances. Jesus is still performing miracles of supply today to glorify himself and his Father, to meet the needs of his family, and to cause people to come to him. If you will be faithful to support the work of the ministry with a percentage of the money that God gives you, he will see to it that your cupboards are never bare and your well will never dry up. Malachi 3:10 reveals that as we open our hand, releasing what we have, God will open the windows of heaven, releasing what he has. Our third miracle type is miracles of healing. A miracle of healing is an event in which a person is cured of an illness, disability, or other physical affliction through divine intervention, often instantaneously and in a way that defies natural explanations. These miracles are significant as they demonstrate God's willingness, compassion, and power to restore health. One notable example of a miracle of healing is the healing of the blind man, as described in the Gospel of John 9:1-12. As he went along, he saw a man blind from birth. His disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" "Neither this man nor his parents sinned," said Jesus, "but this happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him. As long as it is day, we must do the works of him who sent me. Night is coming, when no one can work. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world." After saying this, he spit on the ground, made some mud with the saliva, and put it on the man's eyes. "Go," he told him, "wash in the pool of Siloam." This word means sent. So the man went and washed and came home seeing. His neighbors and those who had formerly seen him begging asked, "Isn't this the same man who used to sit and beg?" Some claimed that he was. Others said, "No, he only looks like him." But he himself insisted, "I am the man." "How then were your eyes opened?" they asked. He replied, "The man they called Jesus made some mud and put it on my eyes. He told me to go to Siloam and wash. So I went and washed, and then I could see." "Where is this man?" they asked him. "I don't know," he said. Miracles of healing demonstrate God's deep compassion and concern for human suffering. They show that God is not distant, but is intimately involved in the well-being of his creation. These miracles reveal God's power over physical ailments and natural laws, reinforcing the belief in his omnipotence and ability to intervene in the natural world. Healed individuals often become powerful witnesses to God's grace and power, as their transformed lives testify to the reality of divine intervention. Also, physical healings often symbolize spiritual healing and restoration. Jesus' healings, for example, frequently illustrate deeper spiritual truths, such as the need for spiritual sight or the forgiveness of sins. Jesus created our body. He can restore it when it begins to malfunction. It is always God's will for people to be healed. But people do not always get healed because they do not always meet the conditions of faith. Jesus is limited by what we believe. Mark 6:1-6. Not only does Jesus heal sick bodies, he has developed a pretty good reputation for raising dead ones. The fourth type of miracles are miracles over demon powers. A miracle over demons involves the expulsion or defeat of evil spirits, showcasing divine authority over supernatural forces of darkness. These miracles are significant as they demonstrate God's power to liberate individuals from spiritual bondage and reinforce the triumph of Jesus over evil. These miracles are significant in that they highlight God's ultimate authority over evil forces. They show that demonic powers are subject to divine command and cannot withstand God's intervention. In the Gospels, exorcisms often reveal Jesus' divine identity and mission. Demons frequently recognize and acknowledge Jesus as the Son of God, underscoring his unique authority. Miracles over demons emphasize God's power to liberate individuals from spiritual and psychological bondage. They illustrate the transformative impact of divine intervention, bringing freedom and wholeness and highlighting God's concern for holistic well-being. Miracles over demons illustrate the reality of spiritual warfare and the ongoing battle between good and evil. One prominent example is the exorcism of the demon-possessed man in the region of the Gerasenes, as detailed in the Mark 5:1-20. They went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain. For he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day among the tombs and in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." For Jesus had said to him, "Come out of this man, you impure spirit." Then Jesus asked him, "What is your name?" "My name is Legion," he replied, "for we are many." And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside. The demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. Here's another. "And at even when the sun did set, they brought unto him all that were diseased, and them that were possessed with devils. And all the city was gathered together at the door. And he healed many that were sick of divers diseases, and cast out many devils, and suffered not the devils to speak, because they knew him." Mark 1:32-34. No matter how great the manifestation of demon powers in the ministry of Jesus, they could never hold against him. The best they could do was to start talking incessantly to make the people think that their power was the same as Jesus' power. This was an attempt to discredit him and make him look like he was one of them. This may be why Jesus would not allow demons to speak unless spoken to. He would just tell them to shut up and come out, and they did. No matter how great the concentration of evil, the power of Jesus is tremendously, tremendously greater. Demon spirits today, as in Bible days, still cause deafness, foaming, fits, insanity, teeth gnashing, sickliness, sickness, screaming, and exhaustion. Jesus, through believers, is still exerting power over all physical and spiritual manifestations of Satan and demon spirits. Jesus is still drawing men and women to himself through miracles over nature, miracles of supply, miracles of healing, and miracles over demon powers. If you found value in this video, please like and share what you think in the comments. There's more amazing content coming, so click subscribe to make sure you don't miss out. Meanwhile, you can click on any of the videos on the screen to learn more about Scripture. Thanks for watching, and may the Lord bless and guide your day.